Welcome back to Natural 2, our unscripted D&D and tabletop talk show. I am Nathan, my co-host is James, and today we are discussing something that I think is somewhat misunderstood between the DM and player relationship or dynamic, and I think that perhaps we can provide an interesting twist, or at least just poke the brain ever so slightly. What I'm going to be referring to is that the dungeon master in your game, or the game master, whatever system that you're running, is constantly seeking validation. And that might already make you feel a little bit of like a negative thought that, like, oh, the DM's just, wants me to, I don't know, pamper him or, make him feel important and things of that nature. But I want to kind of challenge that concept a little bit because I think it's a very natural thing that DMs need/want, and they even find themselves feeling bad when they go onto the internet or Reddit or different forums or even to their own group, and they get the response of like, nah, man, you gotta love it for yourself. You gotta, have all of this fuel and energy just for your own purposes. And before I end my rant and let James throw in his little pitch, I think the best example that I would provide to kind of bring this concept into an analogy is people that love their crafts. Someone's like a really impressive woodworker that's like their main hobby. I would imagine the vast majority of them don't spend hours and hours crafting this elegant wooden chair and then dispose of the chair without appreciating it, without showing that chair to others, without sitting in the chair, without, I don't know, posting it on Reddit to get some internet points. The end result is very much the purpose of a lot of people's crafts and art. And so the way I would bring that over to a DM and what he is doing is you are pouring all this energy into a world or a setting or a campaign or a system or your players' characters and their backstory, and you want that craft and that time and that effort, you want that end result to be used and appreciated and explored and talked about, because that's the end goal as far as I'm aware. And I think that it is almost become a bit stingy or weird to ask for that kind of outright. Uh, and yeah, I think there's something to be discussed there. James, do you have any thoughts on this so far?
I think it is another reason why it's good for more people to at least try to run a game. And there's a whole subcategory at this point on YouTube and elsewhere about how to run the game and running your first game and everything like that. This is one of the reasons why it's a positive thing, is because I don't know how easy it is to understand the effort or the thought process behind running the game and trying to do it well until you've done it. Because it is fundamentally different than being a player in a tabletop game. I was worried before the first time that I played as the DM that it was going to ruin my experience as a player somehow. That it was going to be like, once I know how this is done, it's not going to be fun on the other side anymore. But it's so different that it almost doesn't feel like even the same thing. It almost, like, your DM has a different hobby than you do as a player, even though you're participating in the same activity, you're sitting at the same table at the same time. What they're doing is pretty different from what the players are doing. And the only other thing I would add is, we've said in the past in previous videos that the whole world, the universe, is your DM's character. And if you're a player, your character is your universe. And having said that, you can imagine how you would feel if people at the table, this is kind of an extreme example, but if people at the table were like, this aspect of your character is stupid. This thing about your character is dumb. I don't want to engage with this part of your character. I don't want to play with, why did you pick that subclass? I don't like it. Um and I'm I'm sort of exaggerating or extrapolating a lot, but that is something that the DM has to wrangle with in terms of their character, so to speak, and they're expected to be okay with it. They're not they don't get to be indignant about it, or else they're the bad guy. Uh in in some ways that are unfair and some ways that are kind of necessary. So that that's kind of what this is about, I think, is understanding that facet.
I think one of the things I would throw out to kind of head off what I imagine a lot of viewers might be thinking at this point, or even people furiously typing in the comments,
We hope.
validation, yeah. Validation isn't always in the form of just unrelenting praise. I think, at least in this regard, it could also showcase itself in just interacting with the world. And again, that doesn't have to be in a like firmly positive stance. It could be you demolishing something that they've built, but at least like understanding perhaps like the weight or the effort or the time or the I don't know, thought that has been put into it. And I'm not speaking for all DMs, I'm sure, but I'm assuming the vast majority would hopefully align with somewhat where I'm going. As long as the players actually respect the craft, the time, the energy you've put into this, then what you do with it isn't really the point of contention. It is more this disregard of, oh, well, he's set up all this like political stuff and all this lore and all this like grand scale things, and that's neat because he likes doing that. That's his thing. We're just interested in, whimsicals, fairies, magic shop, and that's all we're really going to put focus on. And that is probably one of the most like gut wrenching things to hear as a DM, because I am not sitting in my room typing away furiously at articles and notes and long ass Word documents because I want to build this faction in this lore in this world that I'm just going to sit in isolation and enjoy. I'm building it so that everyone else can enjoy it. And so if we're at the point, or if you're at the point in your game where you're playing along and there's so many different things being presented to you or showcased you or hinted at that's just not exciting you or not grabbing your interest, you should probably express that to the DM, because I'm sure he is silently sitting there frustrated of, oh man, I've been like really putting in all this energy to try and give them an interesting place or an interesting setting or more bombastic NPCs, and just nothing is like catching on. And if they don't get that feedback or that validation, again, I think a lot of these terms are somewhat interchangeable, it just feels like all of your effort and all of your energy and all of like your enjoyment that you do get in making it is being kind of snuffed out because the end result is just not being engaged or picked up or even responded to in some cases. But there is always going to be an element of this. Like, there's absolutely no way that you can show a reverence for every single thing your DM comes up with. And probably you shouldn't, because not everything your DM comes up with is going to be 10 out of 10, best thing ever written. But yeah, I think there is, at least as far as I understand, when you look across the community, there's so many posts of like, man, I've been really trying to like create this convincing world to help my players with immersion, and they just stomp over everything, or they don't understand things, or they like purposefully misinterpret things, and it's just like, I don't know what to do. And I think the very simple, the very blunt solution to that is there is a disconnect between the DM and the players of what they should be putting their time into, what the players even want to engage with in general, and how those need to be realigned or adjusted so that both parties feel like they are having fun and not wasting their time.
I think every instance of this discussion that I've seen, the suggestion, the answer has always been for the DM to go back and do something or change something.
Mhm.
How do I get my players XYZ? The advice is always, well, DM, you should do this instead, or you should add this to your effort. And that's fine. That's well and good. But I think part of what we're trying to say in this episode is for the players also to uh, remember their agency, remember their responsibility as also participating in the group, and that it's good for the long-term health of your game to think about um, the world that your game is taking place in is 100% the product of intelligent design. Think about that. It isn't procedurally generated. No part of it, no bit is there by accident. It is all there for a reason. And so when you are uh, disengaging from something, when you are tossing something aside or being flippant about something, you are you're not doing that with something that you found. You're doing it with something that was put there for you. And it's easy to forget that because we get immersed and we do think of the world that we're playing in. And I'm absolutely guilty of it as I'm sitting here talking about this and realizing, you know, we think of the world as being something that exists somewhere, and the DM is just telling us what it looks like. They're just looking at it in their periscope and then telling us what happened, and taking for granted that a that is a product that is being woven by the DM, whether they made it up on the spot or it's something that they spent the last week painstakingly creating.
I mean, I think that even applies to like if you're using modules or pulling from a source material as well. Like, yeah, a lot of I guess like the building blocks and the framing have been presented to the DM, but the story and the the wording and the themes and the mood and perhaps like the maps and the encounters and whatnot are still being crafted and presented to you. So while I'm sure the DM has a bit less buy-in and maybe a bit less like personal attachment to if you say that some guild in this module setting is bullshit, that's fine. But I don't think there is any game out there where the DM doesn't have some investment in what they are presenting to you, whatever part of the game that is that they ended up actually having a hand in. So whether this is an entirely homebrew setting or a module or even a pre-written adventure, I think it does apply, just at kind of varying scales.
So we've been doing a lot of discussion about theory. Uh, I want to make sure that we now talk about practice. Just to be clear, what what are we telling people that they should do? What is our action item?
Okay, I'll answer your question, but I'm first going to not answer your question by first stating that
You're a
something you
natural
should,
DM.
yeah, something you should not do, because this is probably one of my biggest pet peeves that happens kind of a lot and it's hard to address at the time. Usually this occurs at the end of a session when things are wrapping up and people are kind of shooting the shit and the group starts talking about like, oh, what's going to happen next time, right? And so often, this phrase can be said in a huge variety of ways, but it always comes out along the lines of like, well, that's just what the DM likes to do, or that's the problem that the DM solves, but they enjoy that, so that's their problem. And there is some truth to it, because I do enjoy being a DM. I do enjoy problem solving. I enjoy building the world and coming up with characters, but I don't enjoy doing that in a vacuum, and I don't enjoy doing that by kind of being demanded to do so. And that's kind of the energy or the vibe that is being embodied when this is said. And, again, most of the time it's said lightheartedly or as a joke. But whenever you do something like that, you do have to understand that there is a little bit of actual sincerity inside that message as well, of like, oh yeah, that's your problem, fuck off. So that would be something I would try and maybe pull back a little bit on if you find yourself doing, of relying heavily on the like, oh ho ho, we just slayed the villain with a crowbar and a peasant cannon, let's see what the DM comes up with next week. It's like, maybe you should, I don't know, have some thoughts or feelings or recommendations or observations to provide versus just, hey, that's your job. But that's my not answer to your question. As far as the actual answer, things that you actually can take from this video and apply to your game or as a player or what you're doing in your group is ask questions. That is the most basic, straightforward way to approach this, because the DM will have a field day. There will be a parade going around in his head in circles, fanfare, fireworks. If all you ask is, well, where did this guy come from? Or like, what is this guy's purpose? Or, oh, was that important? Or is there more history to this? Like, any question about the world or the setting or an NPC he's pulled up. And I'll offer up, this might not be true for everybody. Even if I don't know that as the DM, I'm still excited to flex my improv, to come up with random shit, to just throw something at the wall to see if it sticks, because that is a fun part of being a DM. So even if you're afraid that you might be asking a question the DM's not prepared for, they're probably still going to enjoy that because you are showing that baseline energy of being interested in what is going on. And it's just that simple, but can be, again, approached in a huge variety of ways.
And the only other thing I would add to that is that if your DM asks you a question, an open-ended question, think about your response for 2 seconds. And again, I can't sit here and claim that I am not also guilty. None of us can cast the first stone here, really. But if your DM asks you, "What did you guys think about that?" or "How was that session?" or something along those lines, chances are they're looking for something other than, "Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I liked it."
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have any more of an answer than that at that moment, then that's okay. You're not a bad person. But make that clear and maybe say, that I want to think about this or that and get back to you. But it isn't just a courtesy. It isn't just small talk.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are they're probably looking for something
Mm-hmm.
other than, yeah, it was good.
I've referred to it as feedback fishing before, and I have a really big disdain for like feedback fishing. I find it really difficult for me to get over that hurdle to actually like ask people's opinions on things. So I've done things in the past of like making forums for people to fill out or to have like specific questions at the end of the session, like what was something epic, what was something cool, what was something bad, and like giving people a prompt to work off of. But I do often find myself feeling icky, just being like, hey guys, I mean, like, was that? I thought it was cool. Did we have fun? And everyone's like, yeah, Nathan, we had fun. And it's like, oh, okay, that's good. I'm gonna go die now. I'll see you later. Like, I that is something that I think perhaps a lot of our socially awkward, nerdy brethren struggle with to some degree. But there is like depth to be had there. The end of your session, if you're not having like a decent conversation about it, perhaps that's something you should try and analyze and think a bit deeper on. Hopefully, not to use the same word twice. One thing I do want to touch on because we have been very DM sided in this conversation of like how you should treat the DM or how you should handle the DM. I think the opposite end of this conversation, and this does apply to kind of the player perspective as well, is what is the DM doing the other way in the same topic? Are they spending time asking questions about your character and your decisions and your intentions, or even like in a more meta sense, are they asking you like what kind of stuff you want in the game or what were the key moments that you enjoyed? Because it's the same problem when a player puts a ton of energy into their character, and as James said earlier, your character is your own little universe. If you put all this time and attention and energy and fuel and like writing and whatever into your character and then hold it up to the group and the DM and be like, "Oh, isn't this neat?" and they go, "Wow, that's actually ridiculous. I hate it." Then that's a really bad response. So it should go the other way as well. I do think that that's a rarity. I'm sure it happens, but I think it usually does occur as the DM's creativity kind of being squashed while players' creativity is kind of held up a bit more. But just make sure, a little mental note or a little check that you are creating that two-way street that is often very necessary to D&D and a health of a group. If you are expecting or asking for your content to be respected, then respect the player's content and intentions and time and effort as well.
I think that's gonna do it for this one.
Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, hopefully.
It's a little bit challenging to talk about in the right terms so as not to be misunderstood, I think. So if you have a question or comment, put it down there. You know where it goes. It goes also near those very conveniently placed like and subscribe buttons.
And if you want some brownie points from your DM or perhaps a free inspiration die, text or Discord or however you get in touch with your DM, ask them a lore question. Go for it. I give you free permission. It's your homework for the week, and I guarantee you'll get a good response 90% of the time.
Yeah, that 90% of the time it works every time.
Exactly.
So we appreciate you. We hope that you appreciate us recording this morning show edition of Natural 2 so that we could get it done before the holiday.
You look so bright and alive and vivid.
It's there's stuff behind me. Who knew? There's things back there.
Mhm.
And we'll see you next time.
Have a good one.